Hello everyone and welcome back to Towergate. It is Towergate Day 529, 529, August the 24th, 2018, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Some really good comments in the comments section. I'm sorry, I've just been too busy to respond to too many of them, but I do appreciate it, and a lot of great comments. Some really good links, by the way, as well. I've had a chance to look at some of those links, but typically Sunday morning is kind of like the time I go back and really check a lot of links. That's when I have the most time. So anyway, I do appreciate all the links, and I want to start off today's video by going to talking about two links that were left by Carol. Day 528, Carol left two links, one from Big League Politics and one from the Epoch Times. And keep in mind, the guy from The Market's Work, Jeff Carlson, he's now writing for the Epoch Times. He's had a couple stories in the last couple weeks there, so I guess he's writing for them now. But anyway, I'd like to thank Carol for leaving a couple really good links. So if you want to check those links out, it's Towergate Day 528. Just look for Carol's comments, and you'll see the two links. So I want to start off first by talking about the first link she left. Was a story in Big League Politics. So I'll go ahead and lay that up for you right now. The story basically says that Vesselnitskaya was operating out of the Washington offices of Cozen O'Connor, which is a law firm run by an anti-Trump former Obama administration official whose super PAC donated to the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Jeb Bush in 2016. With a lot of connections to both Republicans and Democrats, quite honestly, of the neocon variety. A Cozen O'Connor partner lives in the same building as Daniel Richman, who of course was Comey's friend who leaked the classified information to the press on Comey's behalf. This person also spoke with Richman during the period that Comey and Confusion GPS were trying to obtain FISA warrants on the Trump Tower. And we believe this woman's name in question is Amy Wenzel, W-E-N-Z-E-L. So there's a lot more to this story. This is just pretty much the gist of it, but there's a lot more details in there, so you may want to read the story. Again, this just goes to show what we discovered a long time ago with the, I said over a year ago, I guess, that the Trump Tower meeting was a pure setup. I went down the list of every single person in the meeting, and I showed each of their connections. And they all are connected to the Clintons, to Obama, to Kerry, to the Rotten Reverend Clinton. They got connections to the CIA, Confusion GPS, all these Democratic operatives, all these neocon operatives. So when you look at the cast of characters that were involved in the Trump Tower meeting, it's clear that it was a setup. We know that Vesselnitskaya posted a picture from inside John McCain's office, and then a foundation or something that she's associated with got a contribution. We know all about Mr. Akhmetov. We're going to talk more about him later. We know about all these people and their connections, and who they met with, and who they were associating with. Been through it time and time again. It's a no-brainer. And not that this is some new information here in the Big League Politics story, but so much of this information about the players and what all went down in the Trump Tower meeting it's been in the public domain for, I guess, over a year now. I guess it was about this time last year that this was all really coming out about the Trump Tower meeting and all the players involved and who their connections were. And so this shouldn't surprise any of us to find this out. I mean, we know that Vesselnitskaya wasn't even allowed to be in the country. She gets a special visa signed off on by Loretta Lynch and working with Preet Bharara. All the players in the Trump Tower meeting have connections to all these people in the deep state, in the Rotten Reverend Clinton campaign, the FBI, the CIA. I mean, it's just ridiculous. When you look at the connections, you cannot, I mean, these people, you know, I mean, they want to say, well, this was Trump and Manafort and Kushner meeting with these Russians, people connected to Russia. No, I mean, these so-called people connected to Russia were actually all connected to the deep state, to the intelligence community, to Fusion GPS, to the Right Reverend Clinton, and people like that. That's who they were really connected to. I mean, they keep talking about these Russians, but these are not Russians who are Russian oligarchs who just live in Russia and are Putin lovers and are part of the Putin clan. A lot of these guys are not even fans of Putin. A lot of these guys are not even people who really, reside in Russia or are hardcore Russian oligarchs. They live in places outside of Russia. They are globalists. They do business outside of Russia. They have associations with many people outside of Russia, including the intelligence community in the Western world, throughout Europe, the UK, the United States, Australia, you name it. All these characters, all their connections, if you look at connections, who people are connected to, the people in the Trump Tower meeting, all their connections are to the people who were in opposition to Donald Trump in 2016. Is the fact that they got a Russian name, or they were born in Belarus, or they've met Putin, or they're wealthy and they're from Russia or something. To try to classify these people as Russians, I mean, because what the dossier is trying to point out, and what the accusation is trying to point out, is that Trump and his people in his campaign were connected to people, Russians, who are in the Russian government, in the Russian intelligence agencies, who are connected to Putin, and this was a plot with Putin and his intelligence people and Trump and all this. But when you look at these people, because they got a Russian name or something like that, or they're from Belarus or somewhere, that these are the Russians that Trump was connected to, when in fact all their connections are to everyone but Trump. They're connected to the CIA, the FBI, intelligence community, Fusion GPS, the Clinton campaign, all these people. That's where their connections really are. And so this is a good story in big league politics. This is a relatively new revelation I have not heard before. I'd never really heard of Cozen O'Connor, this law firm. But you can clearly see if you read the story who their connections are to. And it's not even really just Democrats. I mean, this law firm has got connections, deep state connections, to the Bush family, to the neocons. If you look at who they supported as these Republican candidates dropped out, they eventually found themselves supporting Kasich, donating to Kasich. So clearly these are just hardcore anti-Trump people. And then we learn about this woman, Amy Wenzel, who worked at Cozen O'Connor. She lives in the same building as Mr. Richmond, who leaked the classified information for Comey. And it's just more and more evidence, more building evidence, as if we need any more. I mean, we've got everything but signed confessions from these people. But I'm not so sure that even if we had signed confessions, that they would be prosecuted. And that's what's frustrating. But I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. So thank you, Carol, for that story in Big League Politics. Very important story. It will obviously information there that will be added to my timeline. Thank you so much, Carol. Let's get to the next link left by Carol. And again, it's just more evidence of something we've already known. And in this particular article in the Epoch Times, they dial in on Mr. Akhmetov, Rinat Akhmetov. We also did a deep dive on him not more than a month ago. Of course, we know he's a former Russian intelligence officer. We know that he was involved in the Trump Tower meeting as a translator for Vesselnitskaya. We know that he was there at the Halifax International Conference, where he can't remember if he said hello to John McCain or not. We know that he has worked for Confusion GPS. We know that he's obviously connected to Vesselnitskaya. We know that he has got connections to the Democratic Party. So we know he was his lawyer is a good friend of the Clintons. In fact, this lawyer friend of his was working in the Clinton campaign. Akhmetov actually went and had dinner with this individual on the night of the Trump Tower meeting. He says he was friends of the Clintons, knows people in the campaign. So we can go right on down the line with Mr. Akhmetov. And he's very likely is the source in the dossier that's been referred to as the former Russian intelligence officer. But again, with Mr. Akhmetov, again, he's not this guy who is connected with the Kremlin, real close to Putin or anything else. He's on the outside looking in. He's a former intelligence official. I don't know how high-ranking, but certainly he's certainly no friend of Putin's. If in fact Putin's plan was to take down Hillary, then why would he be friends with Mr. Akhmetov or working with Akhmetov when Akhmetov was actually working with the crew there at Fusion GPS and all these other people who were in opposition to Trump? Akhmetov was on the other side. He wasn't on the Putin team. If the Putin team was to take down Hillary to help Trump, Mr. Akhmetov was working on the Hillary team to take down Trump. So, it doesn't fit. And again, he's a guy who spends he probably spends more time in New York than he does in Russia. He's connected to people all over the world. He's connected to intelligence. He's probably being paid by various Western foreign governments for information, of which he probably has very little. I doubt that Putin is sharing very much information, or Russian intelligence community shares very much information with Mr. Akhmetov. Clearly because of his connections to Western intelligence agencies. The fact that he spends most of his time in New York. He's connected to all these Americans and Westerners. So again, it's not this intelligence guy who's buried into Putin's intelligence apparatus. It's an individual who was a former intelligence person who now probably works closer with Western intelligence. I doubt if Putin would trust Mr. Akhmetov as far as he could throw him. He's too connected to people in the West, too connected to the apparatus and the establishment. So, but again, they were hoping that, oh, well, here's a Russian guy, let's throw him in the mix too in the Trump Tower meeting. That's another Russian we can say Trump was colluding with. When in fact, all his connections, just like everyone else, Vesselnskaya and all the rest in that meeting, if you look at all their connections, who they're all connected to, it's not Trump. It's not Trump's team or anyone around Trump. These people are all connected to the larger intelligence community, the Rotten Reverend Clinton, the FBI, the CIA, British MI6, and all these people. Christopher Steele. I mean, that's who all these people associate with. So, I mean, another good article by the Epoch Times, and again, this is all information that we've gone through many, many times about Mr. Akhmetov, and there's no question that, where his allegiances are, and I think it's very likely that he was one of the sources. But again, as I've said many times before, there were no Russians. Not really. When I say there were no Russians involved, I mean actual Russians and Russian intelligence, Putin's inner circle of Russian intelligence. That's not who was involved in any of this. All these Russians are Russians who have left pretty much Russia. They may be Russian, they may have a home in Russia, they may have some business in Russia, but these are people who hang around with people, the upper crust in New York, and they hang out with intelligence people in the UK, in the US, and other places. These are people who have a Western intelligence connections, not Russian intelligence connections. And that is, of course, what is clouded over and is not explained clearly. There's not been a deep dive by the mainstream media. You want to find a deep dive on any of these individuals, you got to come to a YouTube channel like mine, or Tracy Beans, or someone like that. Son of Nuo. There's people who do good work on these particular topics, and it's not in the mainstream media or even Fox News for that matter. I've never seen Fox News do a deep dive like I've done into the dossier or any of the players. So, this is just more food for thought. This is not necessarily new information. But, I do want to thank Carol for leaving those links. For those of you who are kind of new to Towergate and are not sure about Mr. Akhmetov or what he's all about, certainly some good information there for you. Well, things have certainly taken a very interesting turn in the last couple of days regarding Sessions and Trump, and this idea that Trump's trying to get him to quit, which is what I think he's trying to do. I think Trump's beating on Sessions every day. He's hoping eventually Sessions gets tired of it and quits. But in the case he doesn't, I think Trump is looking, as soon as the midterm's over, to fire Jeff Sessions. And he should fire Rodenstein and Wray at the same time. Clean the house. They're not getting the job done. They're playing for the other team, in my opinion. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to those of you who view my channel, who subscribe to my channel, and who like Jeff Sessions. And again, it's not personal with me. I don't know Jeff Sessions. He seemed like a nice man. But I'm just unhappy with the job he's doing. I know a lot of you people are, like him and believe that he's actually running a secret investigation, and at some point he's going to, lift the veil and he's going to drop indictments. And as I've said many times, I will be the person laughing the loudest and the hardest. I will be cheering louder than anybody. I will be happy as I can possibly be. And, I'll issue a public apology to everyone. Say, hey, I was wrong about Sessions. You guys were all right. So again, I don't say this to be disrespectful. I respect everyone's opinions. I mean, my opinion's no better than yours. I may be wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe Sessions is actually, going to be the superstar, and he's going to come out and drop indictments and take care of business. That may very well happen. I don't see it happening. I'm just being honest, with how I see things and how I feel. But I certainly encourage any of you to, in the comments section, if you support Sessions, feel free to do so. I respect and value your contribution and your opinion. I don't have any moths flying by. I have no problem whatsoever with that, or leaving links for Q and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. It's an open channel here. I welcome a variance of opinions and ideas. I mean, I'm just giving you my thoughts and my ideas based on the information I have. If I had some information that would lead me to believe that Sessions was doing this, other than Q, not that I have anything against Q either, I just don't know who Q is. Really don't know what Q's all about. I do look at some of it, but I've never, in the time that Q's been out there, I've not seen one single piece of anything that Q has produced that's actually materialized into evidence that would produce convictions for the criminals. I hate to put all my eggs in that basket. I hope it's true. I would be overjoyed if it were true, but under the circumstances, I'd rather see some really hardcore evidence being dropped on the perps, and preferably in the hands of someone who can do something and will do something about it. And right now, that does not appear to be Sessions. It's just my opinion on the subject, and it's just my opinion only. But I don't mean to disrespect other people on the channel who like Sessions and think something else. That's perfectly fine. It's all right. It's okay. But let's get back to this point that I was trying to make. So today we have Lindsey Graham, who just a few months back, not that long ago, said that it's very likely, or basically what Lindsey Graham was saying months ago was that if Trump fired Sessions, that likely the Senate would not approve a replacement for Trump. In other words, a threat to Trump. Lindsey Graham was threatening Trump. You better not fire Jeff Sessions. You fire Jeff Sessions, we will not confirm a new attorney general for you. That's the threats that he was making before. And of course, now we have Lindsey Graham coming out and suggesting that it's very likely that Trump will fire Sessions after the midterms. And Lindsey Graham seems to be somewhat supportive of that. We have Chuck Grassley coming out and taking it one step farther and saying, hey, we don't necessarily have to wait till after the midterms, or until January 20th or whatever. We could do something maybe before that, and in fact we could probably get a confirmation. He could even do a recess appointment. So now here we have two heavyweights in the Senate, Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley, who carry quite a bit of weight in the Senate, both now saying that they, certainly giving the impression they would be supportive of it if Trump were to fire Sessions, or if Trump's daily rhetoric against Sessions would force him to resign. They seemed like, obviously, they're not talking about throwing any wrenches into Trump's spokes. They're definitely making it perfectly clear that if Trump were to fire Sessions, they would move to give approval and vote in favor of his replacement. And I would support this 100%. The only thing I would say to the president is, don't make the mistake that you've made in the past, letting other people around you tell you that the next guy up is this guy. Oh, the next guy up is this guy. No. If you're going to replace Sessions with another deep stater, a lifetime DOJ person, or if you're going to replace Wray with another lifetime DOJ person, if you're going to replace Rodenstein with another lifetime DOJ person, for all the political capital that you have to spend to get rid of them, hell, you might as well leave them there. If you're going to replace these guys, replace them with an actual non-deep stater, someone from outside the swamp. Put a real solid attorney general, deputy attorney general, and FBI director in. Make it perfectly clear to them when you interview them that you're not hiring them so that they can go in and continue the cover-up. Let them know that you expect them on day one to roll up their sleeves and get busy and kick some ass and clean it up. It's a mess. It is a mess, and it needs to be cleaned up, and it needs someone who's got the guts to do it. I don't believe Sessions, Rodenstein, and Ray do. You know, that's just my personal feelings on it. And for Sessions, I don't even believe it's that. I honestly believe that with Sessions, it's more of the fact that he wants to just let everything go. He doesn't want to create any waves. He doesn't want to see as him being the Attorney General who politicized the Justice Department. I think he looks at it like, well, you know, yeah, Hillary did all this, and yeah, the deep state did all this, but you know what? You won the race. It's now over. 2016's in the past. Let's all just move on. Let's move on. Let's not dredge up the past. Let's not go through any of that. Let's just move on. That would be the best thing. I really believe that that's just how Jeff Sessions looks at it. I don't think he has some ulterior motives. I don't think he's some deep state, you know, guy or anything like that. I just think that he thinks that's the best course of action. I think he probably even is concerned about civil unrest. If you indict Hillary, if you indict Democrats or Comey or whatever, then the other side rebels or whatever and revolts or whatever. It may be some fear of that. He's probably been advised of that. But, you know, at some point, you cannot allow this to happen. Yes, it's probably going to create, quite a shit show in the country, regardless. But it's got to be done. I mean, Nixon was forced to resign. 22 members of his cabinet, high-ranking officials in his cabinet, went to jail. It's happened before. And you just can't let something like this go, because if you let them get away with this, think what else they will do. You let him get away with the assassination of JFK. You let him get away with the assassination of MLK. You let him get away with the assassination of RFK. You let him get away with the first World Trade Center bombing. You let him get away with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. All lies. You let them get away with 9/11. You let them get away with this too. Where will they go next? And that's just a few. I could go on for an hour telling you about all the deep state crimes that have been let go because nobody wanted to make any waves. Nobody wanted to stir the pot. No one wanted to create any chaos. No one wanted to, and this idea that, well, by going after all these people, people would lose faith in the DOJ and the FBI. We don't want to shatter people's faith in law enforcement and the FBI and DOJ. This is complete bullshit. The fact of the matter is nobody has any trust or confidence in the intel community, the FBI and the DOJ. And the only way to restore confidence in it is to hold the perps accountable and tell the truth about what really happened and who actually did commit crimes, including FEC violations. So Lindsey Graham and Chuck Grassley have changed their tune. They've changed their tune, and now they seem perfectly supportive of Trump firing Sessions, and they tend to be speaking as if a couple of guys who know something's coming, and very likely after the midterms, and Grassley saying, why wait? I think that you can read a lot from that. My. Gateway pundit Jim Hoft. Papadopoulos was set up. Yeah, he was set up to some extent. I don't know the whole story on Papadopoulos. He's still a bit of a mystery. There's a lot more we need to know. But we've learned some new information. We talked the other day about this man, Mr. Tawil, this Charles Tawil, who gave Papadopoulos $10,000 in Greece, allegedly as part of an oil and gas deal that he was going to try to put together. And of course, Papadopoulos gave it to a lawyer in Greece, and then he came back to the States, where he was promptly arrested. They were hoping to find the $10,000 on him. They did not. Why $10,000? That's awfully suspicious. You know why? Because $10,000 is the threshold. $9,999, you're okay. You're good to go. They don't really track that. And he could have came back with $9,999 of a transaction, and he would have passed go and gone on to his next move. $10,000, that puts you in a new category. That's tracked, and the dollar amount was $10,000 even. Clearly a setup, but we now know that from WikiLeaks, previously released WikiLeaks documents that show that Mr. Tawil has been a CIA and FBI asset in the past. He has been a CIA and FBI asset in the past, and documents show that Tawil did work for the FBI in 2006. Who was the FBI director in 2006? Uncle Bob the Executioner. The Department of Justice has informed Judicial Watch that they cannot produce requested documents regarding Confusion GPS because of a glitch. Didn't they have a glitch before on the stock page emails? And then Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz turned them up? Something tells me Judicial Watch is not going to go away quietly, because there's more than one place to get the same types of documents. There's a lot of redundancy with these types of systems and that type of thing, so I can expect Judicial Watch will try to take another avenue or question the glitch. Will Trump pardon Manafort? He certainly should, and he should do it the day after. He should do it the day of his sentencing. As soon as they sentence Manafort, Trump should pardon him immediately. Full pardon. And he should pardon everyone except for that skunk Cohen. He should pardon Flynn. And he should definitely pardon Manafort. Should pardon him. Screw him. I know. Oh, that's politically could be politically very destructive. Could be very dangerous. Could be a political shit show. Yeah, I know. It's going to be a political shit show anyway. Are they going to praise Trump if he doesn't pardon Manafort? Are they going to praise Trump if he doesn't pardon Flynn? No, they're still going to attack him just as much. So what's he got to lose? I would pardon Manafort and I would pardon Flynn immediately. Is Trump ready to declassify everything on Spygate? Is Donald Trump finally fed up and ready to declassify everything on Spygate? I believe he is. I believe he is very close to that. I believe he's been told, I believe he wants to do that actually, but I believe that he wants to wait till after the midterms because that's the political advice he's been getting. It's too risky. You could cause Republicans to lose their seat. We could lose the House, and then you'll be facing impeachment and all these other things. And that's good advice. I mean, it's tricky business, believe me. In fact, if I was his political advisor, I would probably advise him of the same. That's too much of a Hail Mary pass. But it depends on how we do in the midterms. If we are successful in the midterms, that'll be largely because of Trump. If we hold the House and hold the Senate, I'm sure we'll hold the Senate. If we hold the House, then he'll have a lot of political capital, and he should use it immediately. But what I would say to the president is this. The deep state is out to take you down. They're out to destroy you. They are using every tool in their toolbox to destroy you, and they will not stop until they do. If it's not Mueller, it'll be someone else or something else. Mr. President, the deep state is looking to take you out. They'll never stop. If you serve 8 years, they'll be working the entire time to take you out, and probably even after that, to destroy your legacy. They are using every tool in the toolbox, Mr. President, and you've barely even opened the toolbox. My suggestion is that you need to fight back with everything you've got. You've got a lot of tools. You're the President of the United States. Open the toolbox and sharpen them tools and prepare to use them. Probably good political advice to wait till after the midterms. Okay. But not a minute later. As soon as the midterms are over, hopefully we are successful. But even if we're not, open the toolbox. Declassify everything having to do with Spygate. Declassify it all. Fire Sessions, fire Rodenstein, fire Wray. Appoint a special presidential commission. Use every tool in the toolbox. It's being used against you. And Mr. President, if you do not, they will take you down. It's just a matter of time. They just have to find someone willing to make an allegation, and they just keep doing this over and over again, and even if they can't prove any of it, they will eventually destroy you. They will eventually destroy you. That's the name of the game. If they can't force you out of office, then destroy you and beat on you so bad that by the time 2020 comes around, people are just tired of hearing about it. And they say, oh man, it's just, yeah, Trump's done a good job in the economy. He hasn't gotten us in any new wars. I really kind of like Trump. I think he's doing a good job, but I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired every day of hearing about another allegation, this allegation, that allegation, this and that and the other thing. This will just continue. It will never, ever, ever stop. The only way to stop, Mr. President, is to defeat these people. And you're going to have to break it out, man. You're going to have to break it out, and it's going to get ugly. Yes, it's going to get ugly. There's going to be blood on the floor. Blood in the streets. Maybe. But it's the republic and your presidency that's at stake. When you look at the antics of the other side and their deep roots in collectivism, forms of collectivism, socialism, Marxism, communism, we can't let these people take over the country. This is a fight worth having. There's only going to be one man left standing on the hill here, Mr. President, when this is over. And I can assure you that if you do not open up that toolbox, take out your weapons, sharpen them, aim them, and fire, you will not be the man standing on the top of the heap at the end. They will take you down. They absolutely will. It's tricky business, especially just before an election. Good political advice, probably wait till after the midterms. We're not that far away. But as soon as the midterms are over, drop everything you got, Mr. President. Come at them as hard as you can. Drop everything you got. Pull Mueller's security clearance. Pull all them security clearances. Appoint a special commission. Declassify everything. Fire the heads of the DOJ and FBI. Get rid of them. Bring in some good people. And go after these people the way they're going after you. Loaded for bear. Everything they got. Investigate everything. The rotten Reverend Clinton, Mueller, Comey, all these people. Investigate them. Throw the book at them. Put them in jail for a hell of a long time. Offer some deals to them. Sit down and threaten Sally Yates with spending the rest of her life in jail. Watch how she sings. She'll drop on everybody. Same with Papadopoulos. Bring Mr. Halper in. Bring in the walrus. Cook his ass under some hot lights for a while. And to ask him how he wants to spend the rest of his life. That's the game we're playing, Mr. President. Open the toolbox. So, I'm going to take the last couple minutes and just reflect on a couple things here. The frustration that I'm feeling, as you can tell. I know the frustration a lot of you are feeling from reading your comments in the comments section. It's hard a lot of times for people, especially if you're kind of new to this sort of thing. I've been following this, back in the, late 80s, I was writing these little, books and selling them in classified magazines. And I wrote one book called The Three-Headed Monster, and I laid out how the shadow government was created, dating back to the National Security Act of 1947. And I laid all this out and went through all this stuff. But I've been following this for a very long time. And what is actually the problem and the reason why we're so frustrated we can't seem to get, an investigation into the real crimes while we watch a complete sham and literally a coup happening right in front of our eyes day by day by day. It continues to go on despite overwhelming evidence that it is a coup. Okay? So it's really hard for a lot of people to work through their mind exactly how could this be possible? How can this be happening? And so I wanted to explain to you very briefly how this is happening. When we talk about the deep state and the shadow government and secret government, or whatever term you want to use, what we're talking about here is 4 primary institutions. That would be the courts, the media, the bureaucracies, which would include the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, and all the rest, and academia. The commies, back in the 1930s, when they first began this effort, which they continue to do, and now we can see the fruits of their labor after nearly 100 years at working on this, we can see that they have pretty much taken over the courts, the media, the bureaucracies, and academia. And they now firmly control all these establishments. And that's why we're struggling to get the truth out. Because they control the courts, the media, the bureaucracies, and academia. And when you control those things, just as they knew almost 100 years ago when they implemented this plan, which they talked about, there's plenty of history to back up this, I'm not just making this up. They knew that a long time ago, and they knew they'd eventually get to where we are today. And that's why we're having such a difficult time. The courts, the media, the bureaucracy, and academia. That's who we're fighting. That's the deep state. I'll let you think about that for a while, and I think you'll get it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back on Saturday morning for the Saturday Towergate edition, weekend edition. Thanks so much. You guys have a good night. Be safe.